And good morning, everybody. Welcome, Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. Bruce, how are you this morning? Are you feeling a sense of loss now that training camp is over?
No. I'm glad to put it behind me and them, and move on to the next. Now we get into sponsor week with the Broncos. There'll still be crowds at practice, but they will generally be sponsors for the next week. And then, you get to the ramp up of the regular season, which I think we're all looking forward to.
I'm going old school here, but you and I are old school guys, and we've covered old school training camps. What is really nice about the end of training camp is we don't have to pack up our dorm room, throw our stuff in our car, and go for an hour to 2 hour drive or maybe more back to where we came from.
Yeah, that's always nice. Back in the day, you had a lot more remote locations, right?
Yeah.
Like you had the Cowboys in Oxnard, California. You had the Chiefs, which you and I covered for a particular time up in River Falls, Wisconsin, et cetera, et cetera. Now, and I never quite understood why they did it in remote locations. Why wouldn't you just do it at your complex?
Maybe because the facility wasn't back then what
it wasn't
now.
No, and it wasn't. Yeah, the facilities now are so much different.
Yeah,
so much more opulent than they used to be. No question about it. But just from a standpoint of keeping your people in a familiar place, I don't know. There's just so many reasons to do it like the way the Broncos do it, for instance. So Anyway, yeah, but a good finishing day, I thought. A long, hot day, hottest day of training camp.
Yeah.
But we saw a lot to talk about this morning.
I want to let you know about Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk. Another great promotion going on right now. They're going to be giving away a new Sea-Doo four-wheeler or the cash award from the big wheel spin plus $7,500 in cash. The grand prize drawing is this weekend. It's finally here. Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. until midnight during their daily cash drawings with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Last time I was there, I won $300. So that was a locked-up jackpot. Had a chance to, get in the big promotion. I wasn't selected, but, that's okay. Considering I talk about them all the time, people might think it's rigged. With that, Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, really loose slots, great promotions, great food. A family-owned casino that treats you like family. Time now for the lead.
The lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Yesterday's practice, the final day of training camp, and a good one for the Broncos, I would say overall, but specifically on offense. Bo Nix, arguably his best practice of training camp. Wide receivers were literally wide open at times. Defensively, the first teamers, I would say probably average on best. They did make some plays, and they had a really difficult time with Greeley native Trey McBride. But that what stood out to you?
Bo Nix stood out to me. I had him for 27 of 35 for about 330 yards. 2 touchdowns.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That is about. No, you didn't have it for about. Those are your numbers.
They are my numbers, but there's a little bit of an about. I will give you a plus minus of about 15 to 20 yards. Okay. Probably more on the minus side than on the plus side. But he did have at least 6 explosives, which I deem as 15 yards through the air, 10 yards for rushes, 15 yards for passes. He had 6 explosives, and he got the ball in the end zone a couple of times. I thought Bo Nix was outstanding. I really thought he was really good. I was really happy for Trey McBride. I was glad to see what a likable guy he is too, and I had kind of known that a little bit from his time, obviously, at Colorado State. He was obviously excited to be back in his home state. I saw it. I think Joel Dreesen was out there yesterday, another Colorado State tight end, repping for Colorado State guys, and so that was kind of neat to see. But yeah, it was a good day all the way around. The defense started really, I thought, pretty slowly based on what I saw.
Right.
But based on most accounts, they started to even things up as the day went on. So, like to your point, all in all, a pretty good day for the Broncos, who I think kind of were reminded that they're going to be a pretty good football team. Are they going to be a great football team? Way too early to say. Anything like that would be presumptuous at best. But I do think that you can look at what we've seen over the last couple of weeks and say, this is going to be a pretty good football team.
Okay, Sean Payton said he's not going to play his starters tomorrow night, or if any starters play, it would be a small handful. His reasoning is the first teamers got plenty of work in the joint practices with the 49ers and the Cardinals, but will play a series or two talking about the starters in the preseason finale against New Orleans. Do you agree with how Sean is handling it? Not that he really gives a shit about your opinion or mine.
Yeah, really. I mean, I'm not even sure I care about my opinion as it relates to this because...
And I agree. I don't care about your opinion either, but, you're here and I might as well ask.
Sean, I think, is trying, and he talked about this a lot this week, trying to figure out whether he likes the back-to-back, and he doesn't.
That will never happen again.
It won't happen again. He might do like a first week and a third week if you've only got 2 exhibitions, and it depends on how much evaluating you have to do. But I think it's probably the right thing for this team now, and I think it's cool. Cool is probably overstating it. But it's interesting that Sean's kind of making decisions on the fly here because he has no previous history of back-to-back weeks with exhibitions preceded by shared practices. So I think that I'm thinking that he's looking at yesterday thinking hot day, a lot of reps. We were out there a long time. What do we really have to gain by one day of recovery today? And it'll be a walkthrough today. They'll actually be in the complex doing things. It won't be very rigorous, obviously. But to me, at this point, what do you really gain from it? So it feels right to me.
I think you and I have put not a heavy emphasis, but certainly an emphasis on the performances in these joint practices. After the preseason game against San Francisco, we both said, hey, well, at least they played really well, offense and defense in the joint practice against San Francisco. No, the first team offense did not look good in the game. That I do a show with Nate Jackson over on Guerrilla Sports called Going Deep. And he completely changed my mind on my philosophy, completely changed my mind on my opinion on how I view joint practices. So I will ask you, is it fair to say that it's not that you put a heavy emphasis on joint practices, but would you agree that because they played well in the joint practice against San Francisco, because they didn't play first team offense that well in the game, it kind of equals out a little bit? A little bit.
I mean, maybe a little bit. I mean, they still won the game 30-9.
Well, no, at the end of the day, it's about your starters. I understand you're trying to build a team. I know you're trying to build a team.
Well, you're trying to make sure that you have depth, and you want to have quality depth.
Bruce, talking about the first team only. They didn't look good, and they looked terrific in the practices, or the practice, I should say. So when I was talking to Nate about it, I've been doing this for a long time. Excuse my ignorance that I'm very late to the party on this, but Nate said to me, there's no comparison between a preseason game and a joint practice. And I said, why? He goes, Eric, the coaches collaborate before the practices. They basically script what is going to happen. He said, you can't even compare the two. One is totally controlled by the coaches. I understand you have to be able to make throws. You have to be able to make catches. Yeah. I understand that you have to make blocks. But let's look at the end of practice yesterday, in which the Broncos drove the ball down the field and they set up for a game-tying field goal. Does that sound about right to you?
Yep.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, and maybe my eyes were deceiving me, but they got to a point where there was like 4 seconds left on the clock.
Two.
And then wasn't time added back onto that clock to try it again?
Well, they had one last play, and they opted to go for the touchdown, and they missed. They didn't make a play at the goal line for Bandy.
Right.
But I mean,
well, what Nate said to me was, you cannot simulate a game. And I look at it this way, and I'm not saying this is necessarily apples to apples, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
A joint practice is like going to the driving range. You hit 10 balls, and if you hit 9, great, that's fantastic. But what happens when you're on the course that you only get one shot? If that one bad shot on the range happens to be your bad shot on the course, you can take another shot at the driving range. And I really think that was his point as much as anything, is that, it is practice. It is scripted. You're standing there at the driving range, but there is no substitute for standing over the ball on the fairway, because things change in the moment and you don't get a do-over.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think that, but that's an either or. And I don't think there needs to be, you got to take one over the other. They both work for what they do.
They work, but one, but I
I
think one has more importance over the other because well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's collaborated. We're going to do this. Gannon and Payton sit down. We're going to do this. What are you going to do? It's scripted. Again, it's going to the driving range. You still have to hit your shots.
You still have to execute. You still have to execute. By the way, show me an exhibition game where they're doing anything beyond just the very obligatory stuff that they do in camp.
Right.
There's the complexity of what they do in an exhibition game. The spontaneity and not knowing is what Nate's talking about. Right. Without putting words in his mouth. And I don't mean to. I would never presume to with a guy who's played the game. I appreciate that. But I do think that you can gain. Well, let me put it to you this way. You gained enough to not play the regulars in the exhibition game on Saturday. So, they're different things. They're not the same. I think you get great value out of both of them. They are both very good tools for evaluation. But I like, and by the way, even when you structure a practice, you still have to execute the stuff. Even when the other team knows, okay, we're in a running period. Okay, we're in a passing period. We're in a 2-minute hurry up period. We're in a minute 10 left. Got to go the length of the field, down 3, no timeouts, which is what the Broncos were in. You still have to go and execute. I think they're both valuable.
Bruce, I totally understand that. Okay.
Yeah.
But you cannot simulate under any circumstances
I don't think you're trying to, Eric. I don't think you're trying to simulate it.
And okay, well, that's what practice is, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
you're working. We don't need to keep going back and forth. What I'm saying is, you can try and simulate being on the driving range. You can bang out 100 balls, but you know what you can't do on the driving range? You can't simulate slope. You can't simulate a bunker in front of you. You can't simulate uphill. It's the same shot every time. You can't simulate a crowd of 70,000 people. You can't simulate, the pressure of it. You can say we're in a two.
I mean, I mean, that's duh. I mean, right. I get it. I mean, but
all I'm saying is, I think that in some ways, it's very beneficial to have these joint practices. I agree with you. Very beneficial to practice against someone else. But from my point of view, I thought the gap was like this. It's really more like this, because you can't simulate things. You can try, but you can't. Let's move on real quick.
I don't think that you need to try to simulate it. I think you need to get your work done using the format that you're using. That's the most important thing.
Okay. Denver Post columnist Troy Rank, good friend of ours, wrote a terrific article about Bo Nix. The headline was, Bo Nix has a glitch. He thinks too much. This is what Troy wrote. Troy's greatest strength, a quick processor, is mental hardware that causes his athletic software to malfunction. Watching Nix the first 3 weeks of training camp showed the dangers of chasing perfection. At times, Nix looked tentative, reluctant to make a mistake. In baseball parlance, they call it aiming the pitch. You throw a dart instead of winding up and letting it eat. Let's look at Bo's last couple of practices. On Tuesday, arguably the worst practice of training camp. Yesterday, arguably his best practice of training camp. You have been to every practice. I've been to most, but you've been at every single one, so I will defer to you. How much do you agree with what Troy wrote? And could this be a concern moving forward that some of this is getting in his head where he is trying to be perfect and he's trying to speed things up for himself?
Well, his best two practices by any measure were yesterday and then the Thursday shared practice with San Francisco. So in a controlled situation, he had his two best outings. I would say that.
And then in his only non-controlled, I'm not beating him down. And again, this kind of dovetails off of what we were talking about. He was terrific in both joint practices. Mm-hmm. But then when it was the actual game, he underthrew some balls. Listen, you're going to underthrow balls all the time as a quarterback. It's not like it's not forgivable. I'm just saying that he was trying to be perfect with the throw, and he was short on both. I think he's going to be terrific. I don't know if he'll be a top 5 quarterback in the next 2 years, but I think that Troy makes salient points here.
I think, yeah, he does. And because I think his performance through training camp has been uneven. I will say to that. Last Tuesday he was bad. And that's been about the only really. He's had a couple of practices where he hasn't been very good. He's had one really pretty bad practice. The rest of them have been kind of, come see, come saw, right? I mean, kind of like I'm okay. Just kind of, getting things done. Is it a concern? It's not a concern for me at this particular point, but we'll see about his consistency when you get into the spontaneity of games. But even in last week, we talked with Joe Lombardi about this at length yesterday. Protections were very basic. They weren't doing they weren't doing things in an exhibition game. And this is part of my problems with exhibition games. You don't game plan. You don't roll out different protections. You keep things extremely basic. And people were talking about, Luke Wattenberg, guys are coming right up the middle. It was explained to me in terms that even I could understand that they weren't mixing the protections the way that they would normally do in a regular season game. People talk about the running game. Well, the running game hasn't been very productive. Well, the pushback on that is, we're not playing to tackle. And when you play to tackling, the running game can look a lot different. You can argue that the running game wasn't that impressive in the exhibition game against the 49ers, but then I would push back by saying, okay, but they still rushed for 111 yards. Now, they rushed for 153, but I'm talking about the running back room. The running back room rushed for 111 yards. Obviously, you want it to be a little north of that, but I don't know. I think you got to be, to your point and to Nate's point, since we're talking about that this morning, I would agree that everything changes, and it's a kind of a statement of the obvious. Everything changes once the wins and losses start mattering. Everything else has a degree of default that is no big deal. It's really no big deal if you win or lose an exhibition game. It really isn't. There are things sometimes, even in a shared practice, that maybe you don't do as well, but maybe that wasn't your emphasis going in. Maybe there were certain things situationally that you wanted to work on. So I don't worry about those things too much.
Coming up after the break, some of the Cardinals players were absolutely gushing over Bo Nix. We'll tell you what was said and by whom. You don't have to roll your eyes. It's called the tease. Hold on. It's called
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Bruce, hold on a second.
I'm not rolling your eyes. I'm rolling their eyes, kind of like, really, do you just have to gush about Bo Nix for God's sake?
Well, they did.
They did. I know.
We'll talk about it. Fine. We'll get into a topic as well. I'm not someone who goes after referees necessarily or schedule makers. But the Nuggets schedule makers threw a doozy at them. And I'm not talking about a 7-game road trip. When I looked at this schedule, Bruce, I was like, how the fuck did you come up with this plan? That's next.
Spice up your next night out at Nola Jane and Lodo. Authentic Cajun cuisine like andouille sausage gumbo with dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, as well as 6 different po' boys like soft-shell crab and shrimp. Come in before or after a game at Ball Arena. Host a party or party on their rooftop deck overlooking Market Street during happy hour from 11 a.m. to 5. Plus, Nola Jane caters, delivers, and the kitchen is open late night. Make Nola Jane your new favorite spot to eat, drink, and party like it's Mardi Gras.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a new Sea-Doo, 4-wheeler, or the cash award from the Big Wheel Spin, plus $7,500 in cash. The grand prize drawing is the weekend of August 16th, and get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. to midnight during their daily cash drawing, with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos. Loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. Don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corn bake. Man, you gotta try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Welcome back. Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. Time now for What's Trending.
What's Trending is presented by Nola Jane in the heart of Lodo. No one does Cajun cuisine better than Nola Jane. Go see why their award-winning menu is the best in town.
Cardinals linebacker Mac Wilson said this about Bo Nix following practice. Quote, "You can definitely tell he's made the leap. Just comparing what I saw last year with him as a rookie, he was out there making the no-look throws and stuff." Calais Campbell added this on Nix. "Nix has what it takes, the poise, the quick decisions. He doesn't hold the ball too long. He has a pretty good hard count. All the stuff I look for in a quarterback, he is pretty good at." Clearly, publicly, when you're standing at a podium, when you were asked about your own teammates or maybe your opponents, when you're kind of expected with a leading question to say something positive about someone else, you're going to, right? Is that an unfair statement?
No, that's a very fair statement.
Okay. With that, when you hear these things from Wilson and Campbell, does it resonate with you?
When they talk about specific elements of quarterbacking, getting the ball out, things of that nature, it confirms what we already know about Bo Nix and some of the things that led to his success a year ago. I remember last year, Jair Alexander, then a returning all-pro quarterback or cornerback for the Green Bay Packers, just said simply, and I thought it was as effective as anything I've ever heard about on Bo Nix, yeah, this guy's going to be a good one, a great one in the NFL. I mean, it was just one of those, without even getting into anything else. I think we know what we have with Bo Nix. It's nice to get some affirmation if you go and seek it out from other players. I'm with you, Eric. What are they going to say?
He sucks.
Yeah. The dude.
This guy, I don't know what the hell Sean's talking about.
I mean,
top 5 in 2 years, maybe like bottom 5 in 2 years.
Yeah, right. I mean, no one's ever going to say, I don't see what all the fuss is about. I mean, right? So, and I get it, and that's okay. It's kind of a common courtesy that players bestow on one another because at the end of the day, they're all in this thing together. So, the key is going to be, does Bo Nix take the jump in the second year that he needs to put this team in a position to cash in on some of the forecast and accolades that they're getting now in the preseason?
So let me piggyback with this. Sean was on fire yesterday with a 37-minute press conference. He looked like a guy who could not have been in a better mood, which is great. And he sounded like a guy who was just hanging out and can't wait for happy hour later today. I mean, that's kind of how he sounded. He did tell a story, though, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this story and how it compares to Bo Nix. This is what he said. He said, Drew Brees took over the kitchen as a quarterback by making all the calls at the line of scrimmage. In other words, he prepared the meal, cooked it, and served it. When he got hurt in 2019, Teddy Bridgewater replaced him. Payton told the offensive players it was time for them to boil the water and chop the vegetables. Do you feel that Payton's comments about Nix becoming a top 5 quarterback in the next few years sounds like that Nix is closer to Brees right now or closer to Bridgewater?
I think he's getting closer to Brees. Now, you got to go out and do it. And that's, you and I, you know this. That's one of the great challenges for a quarterback a la Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees, to be able to control the game essentially at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
To be able to do all of those things in a short period of time at the line of scrimmage, to identify, to process, all the stuff you have to do in pre-snap is rare. To do it at an elite level, Bo Nix has those it appears that he has those tendencies, potentially those capabilities. He still has to execute it at an even higher level than he did a year ago. And I think that that's the next big question for him. If you're talking about the leap from in year 1 to year 2, this is what we're talking about. Can Bo Nix become that type of player where he can adjust a player at the line of scrimmage, identify the mic, set the protection, whatever needs to be done can he do all of those things in an even more precise and concise fashion than he did a year ago when it was pretty damned impressive?
Okay, I want to move this over to the Nuggets. Schedule is out. I'm not someone in general who bitches about a schedule.
Right.
But I got to tell you, it was more than head scratching. Like, did everybody who was putting together the schedule get together in one room, pass around the pipe, take a couple of big draws off it and say, watch this? Okay. The Nuggets start on the road against Golden State. 2 nights later, they come home against Phoenix. Now, Nuggets will have 16 back-to-backs, same amount they had last year. But this scheduling quirk, to me, it might be the highest form, not the highest form, but a form of stupidity in how they put this together. From November 11th through December 7th, this is a span of 27 days. Okay. This is what their schedule looks like. November 11th and 12th, they have 2 away games or 3 away games in a row. Then they come home for a single game to take on the Bulls and then hit the road to New Orleans and Houston. Then they come home after they play Houston. The next night, they play Sacramento. 1 game at home. Bang, they're back on the road to Memphis. Then they come back home, practice a little bit, maybe a couple days, and they play San Antonio. Right after the San Antonio game, after 1 home game, bang, they're back on the road to Phoenix. Then after they play Phoenix, bang, after they play Phoenix at Phoenix, they're back home again. And then the next day, they leave for Indiana. So essentially, they have 1, 2, 3 home games. Let me make sure I have this correct. Chicago, Sacramento, San Antonio, and Dallas. 4 home games in the span of 27 days in which it's a single home game. They come home, bang, they're back on the road. I don't understand the thought process behind this. At least have 2 home games. Or just keep all the games on the road. Simply for the fact that with all that travel involved, I would almost rather have less travel and play on the road than have all that travel and have a single game at home just to say you had a home game.
I think you're right. Upon first blush, I'd have to look at. It seems to me that every team has at least a grind or 2 every year about the schedule. They have a stretch. Maybe not exactly like the Nuggets have this year. I agree. 4 standalone games at home in the course of 27 games when you're playing essentially multiple games then in between on the road.
It's the travel back and forth.
Right. That's it.
Keep them home for 2 games then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no point really, except for one small stretch in that whole scenario I laid out. There's no point in even unpacking.
Yeah.
You're living out of a suitcase basically for 27 days.
I would have to examine other schedules to see what kind of quirks does every team have. My sense is that every team has a bitch or a moan or a gripe about their schedule. But I would agree that's a pretty challenging essentially a month-long process.
Yeah.
Now do they get, I mean, there's 41 home and 41 on the road. So there has to be a period that kind of counterbalances that stretch where you're only playing 4 single games at home. I would imagine at some point that means that you've got 14 games at home in the course of a month or so. I don't know.
There is going to be some relief somewhere in the schedule.
Yeah.
I understand that. But again, I'm going to go through this again. At Minnesota on November 15th. After the game, they fly home. They're home on the 16th. They play the Bulls on the 17th at home. And then the next day, or maybe after the home game, they leave right for New Orleans. No reason to unpack. They play at Houston on the 21st of November. And then they have a game at home the next night against Sacramento. That's the 22nd. On the 23rd, they'll probably travel to Memphis. Then after the Memphis game, it's the 25th. And by the way, this is right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
After the Memphis game, they're home for a couple of days. They get to actually unpack and maybe save up enough quarters to do some laundry at a laundromat. Okay.
Right.
Then they play San Antonio at home, and they have to leave that night following the game to go to Phoenix. They go to Phoenix. They come home to play Dallas on the 1st, 2 days later, and then the next day they leave for Indiana. There's no reason to unpack, really, except for that small stretch when they play San Antonio when they're home for a couple of games. It's just, maybe other teams do have this, but how do you look at this and say, oh, yeah, it's not that the NBA schedule makers need to set it up nicely for the Nuggets, but that's just a stupid stretch of games in which they have 16 games in 27 days and 4 are at home, and none of them are 2 games at home or 1 game at home, whatever it is. Want to move on because we're talking a lot about the Broncos. The Broncos are the Broncos, and we expect them to have a good season. Have you, in some ways, has it gone so far into the back burner of your brain that now that the Nuggets schedule is out and the Avalanche schedule is out, that we have thrown it so deep into our consciousness because we're all Bronco-centric right now, just how potentially great the Nuggets and Avalanche season could be? It's almost like we have these 2 huge gifts under the Christmas tree waiting for us. We can, but we're ignoring them. We're ignoring what could be potentially unbelievable. And honestly, the 2 teams who have the most legitimate shots to win a title this year.
Well, it's August. And so I can, I know when both the Nuggets and the Avs season starts. And I know when we really start traditionally, even with great teams in the past, start paying attention to them. And I'm talking about attention on a breakdown every game type of thing, really look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, all of those things. I mean, that doesn't come until January or February generally. So I don't feel like I've put it away. I'm with you. I have an understanding and an expectation that both are going to be very good teams, potentially better than very good. They could be teams that will compete at the highest level for the ultimate prize. I don't think it's silly to say that both the Nuggets and the Avs would be amongst the top 5 favorites in both of their respective leagues to win it. Those are all good things to have. But yes, the Broncos have a tendency to suck the air out of the room in a good way. They take a lot of oxygen out, especially this time of the year. We're still, 3-4 weeks away from the beginning of the season now, the regular season, and the anticipation is about as high as it's been anytime for me in the last 10 years. So,
right. Well, and it's funny because when they weren't playing well as a team, you kind of had a little bit of your eye on Jokic and McKinnon and McCarr, even this time of the year. But now because the Broncos have a chance to be really good, it's almost as if those presents under the tree are really invisible. As much as anything else. And I'm going to tell you a story that I think you will appreciate because you weren't here at the time. This is when Joe Sakic was the captain of the Avalanche. And he said the same exact line every year. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, I know. It refers to the Broncos.
Yes. So when the Broncos got knocked out of the playoffs, inevitably, there seemed to be an Avalanche practice the day after that they lost. And suddenly there was a media horde of people at Avalanche practice. And because a lot of us hadn't talked to Joe Sakic that much during the season, past the new year, by the way, they had been playing for a couple of months. Joe would say with a shit-eating grin on his face, what's going on, guys? Broncos season over? Because all of us would be there.
Of course. And by the way, that won't change.
Right. Although, if the Avs get off to a hot start, listen, the Broncos are still the number one team in town. I get it. But if the Avs or Nuggets bolt out of the gate, they will get more coverage than years past.
Yeah. There's a lot more. There's a fairly large group that covers both of those teams.
Yeah.
That really have no crossover at all to the Broncos.
And you know what? That's an excellent point and a salient point that now each team has its own set of this is not a knock when I say this. There are websites and there are bloggers and there are, specific podcasts for certain teams. So all of those people will be there. I guess maybe I'm conveniently or inconveniently forgetting that back in 2004, 2005, when I was here, there was no such thing as Hot Takes with Goodman and Haertl. There was no such thing as Guerrilla Sports or DNVR or, all these other different blogs and things.
Right. Yes.
It was really traditional media back then.
Sean loves the .coms, by the way. By
the way, I was not at the press conference yesterday because I needed to get home to prep for the show on Gorilla. So I wanted to listen to Sean's press conference. I have no problems if you out this person, if you know who it is, because they deserve to be outed for quite possibly the dumbest question of not only training camp, but one of the dumbest questions over the last 5 years in any sport, which was this person cited an ESPN report that Bo Nix will not be the Broncos quarterback after the 2027 season. I read the same thing, and when I read it, I'm like, I wouldn't even consider putting this in our show. Yet somebody asked, please tell me this was an out-of-towner that did it.
Yeah, someone I'm told that was from Albuquerque, in fact.
What Albuquerque?
I mean, I had the same reaction. Someone I had never seen before. And the thing and not only was it an asinine question, it wasn't.
I spit my coffee out.
Well, I mean, seriously.
With what you said, for you to say the word asinine, that's a big deal.
I mean, don't sully up a press conference with a question like that, especially when it wasn't delivered in the same context in which it was posed.
Yeah.
The context was it was an ESPN thing of
3 years out.
Yeah, outlandish predictions.
Yes.
3 years out. I mean, so you didn't put it in the proper context. You just took the verbiage and threw it out there. Sean, to his credit, handled it well. He really did. He handled it well, and we all moved on to the next thing. But that is about 3 of the 37 minutes that I'll never get back in my life. Damn it.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. Thanks for joining us all week. Make it the best possible weekend you can.